Here, excellent. Oh.
Hello.
Hello. Good. So,
Yes.
yes, we can start.
Yes, I think so. And we had quite a pause. So welcome back, everyone. I'm very happy to see you here. It's wonderful to see the interest and that we continue the studies. Um, yes, we continue as the tradition says. That we did the last years with the Midrash Rabbah or the Midrash on the parasha. Today we use Midrash Tanchuma, and we chose a story, one of I don't know if it's a famous, quite a famous story. I didn't check if it was studied before in the Beit Midrash or not. There's no way to find out. So hopefully it wasn't, but if it was, hopefully you forgot what you studied, or even better, you remember what you studied and you can enrich us with what the other rabbi said about this story. It's a famous story that comes actually quite a few times in different places. It was in Bereshit Rabbah, in the Talmud, some other place, but we are lucky enough to have it in this week's Bet Midrash. Rav Shmuel, I'm very happy uh, to see you and look forward to study together.
Thank you.
Yes. Um, should we start? Are you ready?
Yeah, let's dive in.
I need to say something about the parasha. Parashat Emor has like a lot of topics. It's a parasha that is filled with rules of different kind of rules. So there's endless topics that you can choose. Many of them are very like you can feel that they have nothing to do with the other one. So it's a bit eclectic. It almost feels like when you read it that um, most of Sefer Vayikra is very reasonable and makes sense. The order. Then you come to Parashat Emor, and whatever you couldn't place anywhere, it's placed here. Correct me, Rav Shmuel, if you feel different. But there's something about Parashat Emor that it's like so eclectic, and you can't feel the direct connection from one to the other part. According to the tradition, Ibn Ezra says it already in Parashat Mishpatim, the beginning of Parashat Shemot. He said many people try to give many explanations to why things are connected to each other. Said they might be interesting, but usually you can't really give a good explanation. The Midrash now touches one part, and as Rav Shmuel, when I said him, maybe you should read this, he said, but it has nothing to do with the text. And I agree completely that it had nothing to do with the text. Maybe we'll manage to find, in a way, something to say about it that will up to the study where it will take us. So that's way too much explanation. So let's go into the text. It's quite a long story. I try to put it in a way that it's easier to read. We'll take it, I think, part by part and not read all of it at once. Um, yeah, Shmuel, is there anything you want to add before we begin reading?
No, I think you said it very clearly. The moral Kohanim, of course, there's the laws on the priests, on the Kohanim, and who they can marry, and then there is the laws of the related to the to laws about the priests and the Kohanim, and then there is the Chagim. Which Emor is of course interesting parasha because you read it many times during the year. This piece about we go through all the Chagim, so that's why if somebody reads the Torah, it's a parasha I know well because I've read it many times over the year. This piece this midrash we're gonna read is actually interesting because it's sort of in between. There's a lot of talk about Kohanim and their duties, a lot of talk about the Jewish calendar, and sort of in between, like you said, a bit eclectic. there's a seemingly random law about a cow and what age or an animal you have to wait till the eighth day because of its life before you can bring to the sacrifice. You can't bring a very young baby cow or baby sheep as a sacrifice. That's the little paragraph, and now you're going to sort
Yeah.
of, as we say, go a bit on a tangent from that paragraph to something very, very different. So let's go.
Yes. We'll share the document here. And we're going to talk about Alexander the Great. This is not a history lesson about Alexander the Great. Many would also argue that probably these things never happened in reality. There's no such place as the places that we're going to read about, and there's very little doubt that that it's not it's something. It's a rabbinical tradition to talk about through Alexander the Great, and not so much an historical question. But let's read the story. The connection, maybe as Rav Shmuel started, says Hashem spoke to Moses saying, when a bull or a sheep or a goat is born, and then the rule is that 7 days it stays under its mother, and in the eighth day you're allowed to bring him to sacrifice it. That's like the law that it begins with. Probably a lot to say about that. It's maybe one of the most beautiful laws that we have here that takes into consideration the feeling of the mother of the calf, like that you can't take during the first 7 days. Like there's something, and it says "Yeh tachat imo," it will be under his mother. Like there's something about the connection that you're not allowed to go in. It's actually not one of those that when people talk about Torah and animal welfare, this is not one of those that they bring forward. Maybe because the next word is on the eighth day you can sacrifice them, so that then it's a bit less. But I think it's very beautiful, like the consideration of the family and and another law that comes right after that you're not allowed to bring a goat and its son. Like you're not allowed to bring the relatives, a father and son, the same day as the offering. So there are the family aspects that we take in consideration also in animals, which mean they're not only animals are not a meat factory for us. Like they are creatures that have families and so on. But that's not our topic. Maybe it's not our topic. And this is how it begins. It's two very long sentences, and then the Midrash does, as usually the Midrash does in these circumstances, take one verse from the Parashat Shavua, and then bring a verse from somewhere else in the Bible and say, you need to read this in connection with the other sentence. Okay, and here they connect to a sentence. Those of you who pray Mincha and Shabbat every week will remember, will immediately recognize this sentence. Tzidkatcha k'harei el, mishpatecha teom rabah. And the rest, Adam uve'ema toshia Adonai. This is it says in the Mincha right after the repetition of the Tfilat Amidah. So they want to connect these two, that your righteousness is like the mighty mountains, your judgments are like the great deep. The funny thing is the most important part in connection in here is the end of this verse that says, Adam uve'ema toshia Hashem. Man or a human and behema. How do you translate behema, Shmuel? Uh,
Yeah, usually Bema is an animal, but actually in the
Beast.
Torah, yeah, beast, because in the
Yeah.
Torah context, the Torah sort of separates between chayot, sort of like wild animals, and behemot, domesticated animals. But
Yeah, so
yeah,
behemoth is more domestical animals, but the translation here says beast. Um, uh, but man and beast will you save, Hashem. God, you will save man and beasts. So the Midrash here connects these two sentences. Now, we cut only one part of the Midrash. It's a very long Midrash. It goes like both number 5 and 6 in Tanchuma and more, so you can open it yourself and read the whole of it. And then the main thing they do is not to discuss about the verse in Parashat Emor, but about the verse from the Psalms of Tzidkatcha Ariel. So it starts with different things, and then it comes to the question, what does it mean, man and beast you save, O Lord? What is this? How can we understand this? And then comes two stories about Alexander the Great. Is there anyone who wants to maybe volunteer to read?
I can read.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so
Man and beast you save, O Lord. Alexander the Great went to the king of Katsia beyond the mountains of darkness. He came to a certain province called Kartinda, which was inhabited entirely by women. They came out to meet him. They said to him, "If you wage war against us and defeat us, your name will go out into the world that you conquered a city of women. But if we wage war against you and defeat you, your name will go out into the world that women defeated you, and you will no longer be fit to stand before kings." When he left, he wrote on the gate, "I, Alexander of Macedon, was a fool until I came to the city of Kartinda and learned wisdom from women."
yes. So this is the first story. Don't ask me who here is the man and who's the beast in this story, but it's how is that related? Rav Shmuel, have you a better explanation than I have here? I didn't try to give an explanation because I don't really have one.
Yeah, good question. I wouldn't say anything at this point. I think just to think about the story as a whole, as things that first come to my mind here is the fact that Alexander of Macedon, sorry, just wait, שלום. אנחנו סוגרים עכשיו את הראשון. כן, אני אהיה פה לבד עוד עד 10 או משהו כזה.
I can get that is a guard coming.
אביטל,
We're happy to see that Rav Shmuel is well protected in the synagogue in Helsinki.
אוקיי, אז אני אבדוק, אבל אני בטוח שהם יצאו לפניי כבר. אוקיי, אתם צריכים לסגור ביניהם. כן, אני אדבר איתה Sorry, just checking with security.
Yes.
Okay, so what was I saying? No, what came to my mind here is that the first thing he arrives in the city, the women start talking about war. Like, if you fight again, this will happen. If we win, this will happen. That I thought that was very interesting. That the first encounter is war. Why does he want to go to war with these women? Why does anybody think he will want to go to war with these women? I thought that was quite interesting. And then this idea that he learned a lesson from it, from these women, I thought was interesting. And yeah, I don't know yet about what's the connection between man and beast. I do think that there's something here in this whole setup of let's go to war, let's fight, versus this idea, let's think. But let's see how the Midrash concludes.
Yes, it's very clear that this Midrash is not the main part, but the next Midrash regarding the connection to the question of man and beast that we will see at the end of the next story. So we have two stories that are, in a way, they come together. It's part of one journey that he had. In another place, there's a third story coming also on, but which doesn't come in this Midrash. Like these many times they come together, the different stories about Alexander the Great when he went to Katya. Like that's it's a theme, it's a thing. What happened when he went there? And it's like a meeting of cultures. Like there's a debate, a meeting of the different cultures. And here specifically we see Alexander the Great and everything he represents. That's extremely important to understand when we go into the story. Alexander the Great represents the conqueror, the greatest conqueror of the world, probably historically until today. He still is like there is no conqueror as great as Alexander. When we come to talk about who is the greatest conqueror, you go back to Alexander. When Napoleon did his journeys, he referred to Alexander. Like he felt being like Alexander the Great. He is the symbol of the idea of conquering and expanding and empires and everything. And there. Uh, yeah, good. So the first connection, maybe we can leave to the put aside, but we do read here the wisdom of women. The women who comes to him and say, if you come here and conquer, it's a city of women, the place you just came to. Regardless what you do, you're in a lose-lose situation, right? If you win, then it's like people will say about you that you fought against women, that you came in, which is a bad rumor. And if worse, if you lose, you'll be the one who was defeated by women. And regardless what you do, that's a bad thing for you. And you accept their explanation. Like you hear this and say, "Wow, these women taught me something, and I'll take it with me." I was a fool until I learned something from these women, thinking about consequences of the thing we do, not only what you can take, but also what will it mean to take them. So that's like the first meeting, and then he goes to a different place. Katrina, you want to continue reading?
I
Okay.
just wanted to make, I noticed somebody's written here, but where was
Yes.
Katinda located? Is located. So as Rabbi Jair says, it's a good question whether any of this is based on anything historical at all. I was actually just out of curiosity looking a bit around commentaries, translations. There are like people who try to translate and locate. I think somebody sounded Carthago or something. I saw that the next story happens in Afriki, and there's a bit of discussion with scholars if it actually means Africa or if it actually means a completely different place in Asia. So it could be that these place names are actual places that exist somewhere, but obviously the stories around them are, not necessarily describing those places exactly.
Yeah. But Katsia, the word Katsia, it also may be connected in a way to Katse,
The end, yeah.
the end. It's like he came to the end of the world, beyond the dark mountains. Like you can feel the mystical aspect of this. It may be connected to Alexander the Great, who went over the mountains. Like probably they built on a myth about Alexander the Great. Like there's something that is connected to some stories, but not specifically the historical aspect. So the place is called Katsia, which is there also a few stories come from this place of Katya. Good. Yes, let's continue to read.
He then went to another province called Afriki. They came out to greet him with golden loaves, golden pomegranates, and golden bread. He said to them, "What, does gold grow as food in your land?" They replied, "Did you not have bread in your own land that you came here?" He said to them, "I did not come to see your wealth, but to see your practices. To see your just practices."
Yes. So
While they were
let's because
Yeah.
it's a long midrash, I want to make sure that everyone understands. So we'll take it part by part. So he comes to this area called Afriki. The people come out with the things made out of gold. And he like looks at them and says, "What is this? Why do you bring me the fruit out of gold? I can't eat gold. What can I do with these things?" And they answer, "We couldn't understand which other reason you have to come here. Because if you have bread, you probably have bread in your own land. So Why on earth should you come here? So we thought maybe because you want bread made of gold. So this is what they answer. And then he says, no, no, I did not come to see your wealth, your gold, but to see your just practices. It's actually it's an interesting surprise, right? He comes and says, we know the conquerors there go after money, after gold. We all know why people went to the America, right, and South America and all these areas. They came to the richness of these countries. And he comes and no, no, I'm not here for the wealth. I'm here to understand your law and what I can learn from that. Okay, it continues. Now comes that's like the first scene of the dialogue. Then something happened.
While they were sitting, two men came before the king for judgment. One said, My lord, the king, I bought a ruin from this man. I cleared it out and found a treasure in it. I said to him, Take your treasure. I bought the ruin, not the treasure. The other said, Just as you fear punishment for theft, so do I. When I sold it to you, I sold the ruin and everything in it. The king called one of them and asked, Do you have a son? He said, Yes. He called the other and asked, Do you have a daughter? He said, Yes. He said to them, Let them marry each other and let them both enjoy the treasure.
Okay, so let's have the explanation of the situation. Quite simple, right? Two people comes and they have a fight, just like in regular courts today, right? Maybe a bit different. So two people come, and the one says, I bought this ruin from this man. And when I cleared it, I found a treasure. This treasure doesn't belong to me because I only bought the house. I didn't ask, I didn't buy any treasure. I bought only the walls, the place. I didn't buy any treasure. So this treasure belongs to him. So the person who sold it, instead of saying, "Yay, good, thank you for being so honest," he said, "No, no, no, no. I sold you the ruin and everything in the here. The treasure belongs to you." So they're fighting and going to the court, going to the king, represents the court, and each one of them says this treasure belongs to the other one and not to them. And then comes the king come with a very interesting solution. He asks, do you have a son? I say, yes. Do you have a daughter? Yes. Great. So marry them to each other and give them the treasure so they can build a proper home and they will prosper with this treasure that you both found. Okay. Any questions? It's quite simple. Good. So, Alexander, yes. Now comes the reaction.
Shall I continue?
You're very welcome. Doing great job.
Okay, thank you. Alexander of Macedon was astonished. The king said to him, Why are you so surprised? Is this not a good judgment? He said, Yes. The king said, If this case has occurred in your land, what would you have done? He said, We would execute both parties, and the treasure would go to the king's treasure. The king said to him, Does the sun shine upon you? He said, Yes. Does the rain fall upon you? He said, Yes. Perhaps you have small animals in your land? He said, Yes. The king said, Go, your spirit should be humbled. It is for the sake of those small animals that the sun shines upon you and the rain falls upon you. It is for their sake that you are sustained.
Yes. And here comes the conclusion. Thus it is written, man and beast you have, or you save, O Lord. God saves man in the merit of the animals. Okay? Everyone understood the finish of the Midrash? The surprised Alexander says, wow, interesting. I didn't see this coming. This solution. In my country, we would kill both and take the treasure to the king. And then the king of Katia asks him, do you have sun in your country? Do you have rain in your country? Do you have small animals in your country? Well, that explains everything. The sun and the rain falls on you. It comes only because of that you have small animals. If it was because of you, humans, then God wouldn't have given you all this great gifts of sun and rain. Good. This is a story. There are many, many different directions to take this to, and I think we'll open up. But Rav Shmuel, I wanted to ask you, if I may, I may?
בבקשה.
What do you think of these two judgments, like what the king of Katya said and what Alexander the Great says, and regarding to law?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a very interesting. My first reaction when we read it is very interesting. Not so common for the Talmud to speak so much at length about people who nobody's Jewish in the story. It's not nowhere related to Am Yisrael. It was just that I thought was quite interesting. We talk about a Greek emperor meeting a king of another nation in a distant land, and there's obviously wisdom in this land, and this king of Macedon, Alexander the Great, can learn from them. So I just thought that was quite fascinating. I took the liberty of looking at another piece of Talmud where there's some of these stories come there as well. There is also actually a conversation between Alexander the Great and the Jewish sages,
Yes.
and the philosophy of the Jews and the philosophy of the Greeks and so on.
Rabbi Shimon
This-
Tzaddik meets him, and yes, there's some great stories.
So this text is actually very interesting because it shifts completely the focus from the Jewish world to something completely different. Now, in terms of law, what you were saying is very interesting because from a halacha perspective, of course, they could do whatever they want because neither of them wanted the treasure, you know. So what is the halachic status? Did they buy the land? Did they buy treasure? I'm not sure. But the interesting thing is nobody.
What would you have done if they came to you?
Yeah. Well, who owns the treasure? Yeah, it's a very interesting thing. If they're both happy, with the treasure, to have the other to let the other one have it, yeah, I don't know. What would you say? They're both very big tzaddikim here. It reminds me of a story of Rav Kook and Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, who are very different in their political and religious views, but they had a very great personal respect for each other. And there's a story that they stood in front of a door together, and there was one, and said, "You first, you first, you first," and they didn't move because they both said "you first." And then finally, Rav Kook realized there was the other door. That it was not like just on scene. It was one of the doors was two doors. They managed to open the door and open it wide, so now we can walk together. So it reminds me of this. Reminds me of this story. What do you do when everybody's a tzaddik? Would they have agreed to split it? I don't know. I think for me the interesting one is Alexander the Great because he behaves a bit like an animal. If you look at the end of the pasuk, the animal and the human, I mean, he's just saying, "Well, I want the money, so forget about the laws." So that's what I thought is an interesting.
It's very clearly that it's not a just conclusion, right? Because the king here avoids solving the legal question. Who
Right.
owns a treasure that there's a dispute about?
Right,
There's no what will like one thing that could happen if he asked, "Do you have a son?" and he answered, "No, I don't."
Yeah.
The whole story will fall, will not survive. Of course,
Right.
that couldn't happen because it's the story. But I'm saying that this is not it's a very bad legal solution.
Right.
It doesn't go on the question of legal. You said about what is the halacha, what the halacha will say about. So the most simple thing will be either to share the treasure, or to say, okay, if it doesn't belong to any one of you, maybe it belongs to the kingdom, to the king, or to a bit like what Alexander says, but in a different way. He says it in a violent way, but you could just say it without killing, right? You can say if no one wants it, good. So let's, or give it to tzedakah. Give it like there are many directions that can go with this legal question, but the legal question is not. It's a very bad legal solution, right? No lawyer will ever claim that this is how you are supposed to solve this dispute. But maybe they bring to a different direction, that some things don't need to be legalized, because this is definitely not a not legalized direction. If you, I'm sure you brought quotations. I would maybe mention the Arba Midot Ba'adam, the four different qualities of a person that you can see in the Masechet Avot that we studied a couple of years ago, and then it says the Midat Chasidut, when someone says mine is yours and yours is yours. Sheli shelcha v'shelcha shelcha. This is what they no, it's all yours. It's all yours. I don't need anything. Here they behave literally that way, and everyone. But midat chasidut is not how you're supposed to have a legal system, right? In a legal system, it says lo te'dar pnei dal. You're not supposed to favor the poor in a legal system. A legal system wants to be legal, wants to have rules and laws that define how you solve these conflicts. And this is definitely not a legal solution. So it's interesting. It may be brought as a fantastic idea of how you can do a value-based system, but it's not an ideal. It's not a good solution for our courts. If our courts behave like that, we wouldn't have used them, right? Because then we wouldn't know what to expect when we went to the court, which is interesting by itself. Yes,
it's interesting because like the famous judgment we have in the Tanakh, that judgment of King Solomon.
Yes.
And there also, it's not really, there's nothing legal about it. It's, I don't know how familiar all the listeners or all the members of the Beit Midrash. I know listeners, we're all members. But of course, it's a famous story. Two mothers come, and one says, my baby's that one baby's dead, one baby's alive. One mother's the living one is mine. And no, the living one is mine.
They say exactly opposites in here, right?
Yeah. Shlomo
the living.
Yeah. Shlomo says, okay, I'll cut the baby in half. And then, of course, the mother, who's the real mother, she's the one who says, take the other half, yeah, because you take the baby. I don't want the baby to die. So that must be the real mother, because she cares more about the baby than about herself having a baby. So it's another story where sort of.
But in that story of Shmuel, King Solomon tries to find the true. He's doing just, right? The goal is to find who the rightful mother.
Right.
This is exactly the opposite story than what we have here. Because King Solomon tries to solve. So he says, cut. Good. Two people dispute. I can't. It's a hearsay, right? He says, she said. So we cut them. And the same solution could easily be applied here, right? Okay, two people who say the treasure belongs to the other one. Okay, we'll split it in two. But none of them wants in any way to be a thief, right? He also says in the text, he said, right, that I fear the punishment for theft. Not the punishment of the king, because the king here will decide what happens. He says, I don't want to be a thief. Anyway, so if this doesn't belong to me, I don't want it. I can't have it, because then I'll be a thief. Even if the court decides that I'm rightful owner of half of it, is there something wrong about having something that doesn't really belong to me? So there's a principal aspect of being Like he wants to be completely just these two people, and then the king, maybe that's the great solution, right? Because he comes and says, so maybe we're not supposed to look in this case from a legal perspective. It doesn't mean we don't have legal systems, but if we are in a place like this, we need to think of not who does this belong to, but what can be done with this. Like it's a choice to look on the future and the potential instead of the past. The legal system is based on looking on the past, like saying this is what happened, who is to blame, right? This is what the whole legal system is about. Who was right and who was wrong in the dispute? What do the law conclude about what happened? And here it comes and say, okay, but let's look on the whole thing differently. Not on the question of the past, but the question of the future. What can be done with this? What can we create with this treasure that came to the world? But then I also have to ask you, Rav Shmuel, do you have anything to add?
No. Very, very, very good points. Yeah.
But then I have to ask, why do Alexander? Why is he so violent?
Yeah. That's actually something I noticed in the previous story. That this obviously the women felt immediately that he's coming for war, and then they explained to him a logical why it doesn't make sense to go to war against them.
Yeah.
And now it comes again. Well, in my country, we just kill everyone and take the money. like.
But why?
Yeah. So
What if this case came to the court of Alexander? Why should he kill both?
yeah, it's true. They don't want
He
the
can
money
just take the money
anyways.
without. But both of you say it doesn't belong to you. No problem. I will gladly take it to the king's treasurer. Why do you need to kill the two partners?
Yeah.
Any maybe other people
I think
have
there is
an
something. I
idea.
think there is something changing here, Alexander. I think there is, like you said, the conqueror, the animalistic, aggressive. Not expect. I don't think he's expecting this type of morality. That's the feeling I get. Like in my country, this would be unheard of. He's not expecting this whole situation. One man, he doesn't want the money. The other one doesn't want the money. So what do you mean? Like you see money, you kill the owner, you put the money in your pocket, and
Yeah,
that's
but here specifically, he comes and says, if this case came to you,
right.
this would have been the easiest case, right? As a king, two people come and say, we don't want the money. Why does he need to kill the two people? If the fight were the opposite, they both fought, say, no, this belongs to me, and the other one says, it belongs to me, maybe I could understand that he said, okay, let's kill both of them and I'll take the money. Not the most humanistic approach, but it's at least understandable in some that you can give reasoning to it. But why, in this case, he says, if this case came to you and two people say, this money doesn't belong to us, why in that case? It doesn't make sense. Any of you have a suggestion? Paula, I can see
In
you want
case
to
they
say.
regret, or maybe their sons will take. Why
The
not? I
sons.
mean, in case they regret after.
Okay. So you say maybe some of them will in the
Will
future
regret
will come
after.
to.
Maybe the children of them will regret, and they will. You never know, to be sure.
So yes, Glenn.
In both cases, what you're looking at is a transactional relationship as opposed to a relationship. Something has to happen, transaction. And what the text is showing to us is that it's not a transaction. It's building on the relationship for the people involved.
Yes.
And that's the difference.
This is the beginning of maybe the how it's called Gishur, like going to instead of going to,
Mediating,
huh?
mediation, maybe.
Mediation, yes,
Yeah.
yeah, that you have a different approach of problem solving instead of yes, instead of transactional. But still, Glenn, I think you avoided the question of why killing the people, but maybe that's part of it because it's a question of relations. Then we don't want any relations with the people that might, maybe as Paula said, that might have a say about the money. So we make all of them disappear.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
in some people would use the expression power over or power with.
power
You can
over.
gain you can gain much more when you share power with people than when you have power over in a hierarchy. So the transactional nature refers to the king, I'm going to decide. But building between the parties, you come much further. Power
I
with.
agree. That also, it's a question of creation that is maybe connected to the questions that start the story, right? Because the story starts with them asking Alexander the Great, coming to him with these fruits of gold that are very like the symbol is very strong, like the fruits of gold that you can't use to anything except their monetary value, but they try to underline like why else would you come here? Why don't you have food in your country? Why do you need to be here? And he comes with aspects of course, it's Alexander the Great who conquered the whole world, came all the way to India. Like he's the one who takes everything, whatever he can. And why would it take it? Because he can. Like not because he needs it, but because he can. So I think in that sense, the story also underlines exactly this aspect. What did Alexander the Great do? He went around the world, killed people, and took what they had. Like the story here symbolizes what he did, maybe more than the question how the law system uh, occurred in Macedonia. That's not the case of the story. The story here says something about Alexander, the conqueror, the person who goes along the world and takes what he can. In a way, I had a conversation a week ago with someone, a former minister in Denmark, and we talked about the situation in the world, and we talked about Donald Trump, and I promise I'm not going to go into politics, but many people are like um, their biggest frustration is that he's completely unexpected and it's against what the whole way that the system worked the last many years. So they are shocked that the situation looks differently. So I told her, yes, but that actually the weird thing is not Donald Trump. The weird thing is what happened the last 60 years. Like the expectation that a country leader doesn't take whatever he wants when you have the power, that's a new thing. The majority of history, leaders did like Trump does today. He just does it very bluntly, right? He doesn't care about what people will say and so on. But it's an interesting thing. He acts the way most leaders, most of the history of the world acted like. And while we expect like a different behavior, that's the surprising part that we actually have these expectations because that's not what the history did. But I'll close the political aspect here. Yes, Mira?
I'm just wondering, because Alexander the Great, I mean, yes, he was conquering and taking what he wanted, but still he seems interested in learning like alternative ways of doing things.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's beautiful that you point this because the story here starts amazing, right? When he comes in, no, I'm not interested at all in your money. I
Yeah.
don't need it, right? Like the gap in the story between the person who comes and say, I'm just interested to see your law system. I want to be inspired and to learn, and then like finish the story. I would kill them and take the world. It's like the gap here between these things. It's I think it's very. I hate the word strong. It's very uh, I think it makes you think
Yep.
that the world is more complicated than just bad and good, right? The
Yep.
people are more it's more complicated. This person can be as bad as it can, but at the same time, he can also be very open and good. The in different sources about Alexander the Great in the Jewish tradition, some seem as a very bad person, but some of the Shmuel started is very also very positive. That he had relations with rabbis, that he come and give them show them respect, and like you have, uh, even though he was the one who made Judea Greek, right? He was the one, the conqueror of Judea, what bring us 100 years afterward, the Hanukkah story and so on. So you have a person that is, for the one side, open to different cultures and different approaches and respects the local traditions, which is also known about Alexander the Great, that he did that. But at the same time, he's also the greatest conqueror that kills whoever doesn't whoever doesn't go along with what he wants there. So there's a conflict. I agree here. Um, maybe it's the same conflict that we also have today in the world when people like talk about there's like the difference between being inspired by cultures and differences and so on, but at the same time like being no, but we're not allowed to talk about the differences. Like want to be inspired by differences, but we're not allowed to also act on like that people are different and have it's a bit of like internal conflict. But we went a bit off topic. But thank you for pointing that out because it's very because the story, as you said, starts very positive
Yeah.
with and then it's kind of a shock. Wow, how come you go to that direction? Yes, Isaac.
Hey guys, so I find Alexander the Great to be so you're able to hear me, correct?
What? We can hear. You can.
Okay, I don't know if I turned it on enough. No, I think Alexander the Great is changing the perspective of conquering. Yes, at the time it was a matter of taking land, but what I find interesting about him was he was always curious about culture, learning from each place he went. As the Midrash started, he went to a city of only women, learned something new. Here we're talking about where and how to put judgment, how to deal with it. And I like if we look in the historical perspective, he is probably one of the only massive conquerors in the history of humanity that has this perspective of that curiosity. And that curiosity brings him to me, at least, to be somewhere more humble and more in a place where you can relate in some way or another from a human perspective rather than it's just being as I'm the head of a dynasty or I am the king of something. That it when I can look at it very philosophically about how he was, you called it, Alexander of Macedonia was astonished. So astonished means that he has been impressed by something. He think it's interesting in some way or another and how to deal with the perspective of judgment. And when we look at the perspective of many other cultures that have conquered massive grasps of land over the time, it doesn't matter if it's from the Middle East or it can be the British Empire, wherever it has been, how you interpret the way that land has been taken, how you are thinking of how it has been interpreting in the local. This guy is curious, and I find it interesting in the perspective of the Midrash that we're talking about. So that's just what I wanted to say.
Yeah. Thank you. And I think others were curious too. You can see if you look on Napoleon, that was inspired by Alexander the Great, he did many similar things. Koresh, the Persian who brings the Jews back to the land of Israel and also many other places. So you have some great conquerors that are maybe connected well to what Glenn said before, the question of power about, power on or power with, like the understanding that you can use power in different ways. Like you can be empowered by giving more place to different. So that's an interesting aspect. Though I have to underline that the Midrash here, like, goes very down on Alexander, because the finishing is the only reason that you have sun and rain in your city, in your country, is because you have animals. Because it's not because of people. People who behave the way you do. So the Midrash definitely doesn't favors Alexander. So we shouldn't make a pretty picture of him in this Midrash. Rav Shmuel, do you have a direction
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah. No, very, very interesting midrashim, and you could speak a lot about Alexander. I mean, it's interesting. Like it's another place where you have these stories I was mentioning is Masechet Tamid, which is famous because it's probably the shortest tractate in the Talmud. So sometimes you need to do a Shiur, want to finish something quick, you do Tamid, and then you have these stories, and you have a couple of other stories. And there's a story there about Alexander seeing a skull and money next to it, and the money was never heavy enough for the skull because until you cover its eyes, because the more money you see, the more you want. There's a lot of interesting stories. What I think is in these both two midrashim is you can sort of shift away the concentration from Alexander and look at the people. You have both the women and then these people in Afriki. They have an expectation what to expect from Alexander the Great. The women come and say, "Oh, don't fight us because it's not a good idea." So they immediately see he's a conqueror, he's a head of an army, he's coming to kill us. Alexander hasn't opened his mouth yet. And then the second night, the same thing happens. He comes, let's give him money. That's probably what he wants. I just thought that's quite interesting because there is sort of an expectation of a bloodthirsty conqueror. And then, at least it would seem that perhaps they sort of didn't. Maybe he was better than expected. At least at the beginning of the story. I agree with you that the end of the story is much more negative. But I think there's something to think about here. Is that do we jump to conclusions too fast sometimes?
But how do you explain that also in the first story? He comes and said, "Wow, they were right. I learned. I was stupid until I learned from these women." So
Yeah.
also the word of Alexander in the first story is not about that they jumped to conclusion. It's about they were right. I was about to do that, but they stopped me. So it's not because they didn't.
I don't know. I don't know. He definitely learned something from them, and it sounds like I was too. I never would have thought about it from this perspective. That's what I understood. But was he about to start a war with them? I don't know. The story doesn't tell us, so we can't.
But I think maybe the way that you can connect the two stories is that in both stories, with both the women and the story of Melech Katya and his solution, they come and talk about, but what will the result be? Like, what will the effect of what you do? And it's very easy when you're inside a situation to think about the immediate result, right? There's a city, you want it. There's money involved, you want it. Like there's something about taking here and now. And both of them come say, but you have to look further away. Maybe this a message I have to send to the leaders of in the state of Israel and every other place. That it's very easy to start something, but many times you don't think on what will this lead to in the long run. Like what will the result of what you do now happen? Not only the direct result, because you think that you are solving this problem immediately, but you don't understand what this will lead you to. And the women tell them, you need to look further away. What will happen if you manage, if you succeed? He's just thinking of, how do I succeed? Not what the result of this of succeeding is. Also, the people come to him with these golden. Say, But what do you need wealth? You have bread in your own country. You have fruit. You have water. You have everything you need. Why do you need a different country? Like, why do you need to conquer somewhere else if you have everything you need? They come to him and says, like, look on the what is the result of the thing that you do. Why? And the king of Katsia comes and says, the question is not who can take the treasure. The question is, what can this treasure be used for? Like, what can we do to the better of the world? Also to the benefit of you two. Both of you that come here, let's see the potential that can be created with this treasure through building, through giving life, through doing something for the future. Yes, Mira?
Just a comment, and maybe someone said something similar, but like one thing with this story is it makes me think of leadership, also like leadership today, um, and here, at least for me, like I feel the most respect for the leaders or the people who argue for non-violence and like sharing the goods, like doing the typical nice things. But is this, or at the same time, I feel like modern leadership, whether it's of countries or businesses, is often of another type. Or the leaders that unfortunately get, in my opinion, a lot of respect are not necessarily peace-seeking or non-violent. These were some thoughts. It's so
Yes,
hard
yes.
to.
No, there's no doubt that the question of violence and non-violence and all of that is also very complicated to talk about, and it's
Yeah,
not easy just to judge any aspect of use of violence. In the same time,
exactly.
like that we need to be careful of that too. And I
Yeah,
think maybe because of that, this is not a Jewish story. Like they try to bring two very extreme worldviews that none of
yeah,
them is a reality. Like you can't build a society on what is happening in Katya. Maybe that's why it says Katya. This is something at the end of the world. Like it is. This is maybe the word Katya in Talmud language is Uthopia, like the idea of having a utopian place that is non relevant for our world, but talking about that place is crucial. Like talking about how an ideal world will be should inspire us. Maybe like Alexander does, he goes there to see, can I be inspired a bit from what's happening there? Can I find a different way, different approach to look and observe the world and go to a different direction? Maybe that we can learn from Alexander and the way he acts there regarding being open uh, and curious about different approaches. And then the place that we are in is this is not the story of the Jewish place. Katya is not the like the we don't have a story of a Jewish settlers in somewhere in the end of the world that have a perfect Jewish society. That is not the case. It's a different kind of people that work with a complete different. It's also non-realistic, right? You have a city of women. A city of women can't exist, right? Because you do need men to reproduce. So it's very clearly that this is a fantastic country. Like this idea of a different place, a society that have a city of only women, a society that two men fight on. The treasure doesn't belong to me; it belongs to you. That doesn't exist, right? But what will we do in such a world, and how do we come closer to such a place, to such an idea of a society that maybe is also within our thought, but and maybe it also reflects something deep in the connection to our parasha and to the end of the Midrash. Adamu Behema, the connection to the animal. Because there's something about, if there's one thing that animals don't do, animals conquer, right? Sometimes, but they conquer what they need. Like they don't conquer out of they conquer what they need. They don't create empires. You don't have any animal empires. You have a question of simple. Every one of you. And animals act without greed. It's not in their and they come and say the way animals act without the things. This is what God wants us to be. So this is the reason that He has empathy with you, like the simple animal way. And He comes and says, instead of maybe you, Alexander, instead of going all the way to the end of the world, look in your own country on the way animals behave. There's something went wrong with you that you should go back to to the nature of animals to be redeemed, right? This is the way the word here of Adamu v'hema toshia Hashem. You save it's the behemoth are the ones who are the rightful people, the rightful creatures who deserve God's redemption, not people, because people act out of the greed, the one thing that doesn't exist among the animals. And just as the Torah starts with saying, you see the animals, think of them as creatures who have families and such. So the Torah starts with humanizing, in a way, animals, right? Saying, looking at them as mother and children, like seeing them not as meat, but seeing them as creatures who have relations, who have society. This is the beginning of, this is where we started from the parasha, but this is also where we end, in the going back to society, saying society exists only because of the animals, because they still behave properly. They weren't ruined by all the options that exist today. Rav Shmuel, do you want the finishing words, because we're a bit after at the time?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I agree with what you said. I think just the concept is very interesting, that even if people are not always worthy, God will continue giving the blessing to that place because of the animals. I think it's a fascinating idea that blessing continues. Not necessarily God gives a chance for the world. Even the humans don't deserve it. I think it's a very different. It's not a very common. At least I have never encountered this idea in Jewish thought so often. Usually we speak about the mitzvot, doing good deeds. That's what keeps the world going. So to me, it's actually very interesting, the final message of this Midrash, that, the world needs to keep going, not necessarily for the sake of humans, but for the sake of animals. Or at least blessing should be sent in the world because the animals deserve it. I don't know. I think it's a very different perspective, and it's quite a refreshing perspective.
But what you say of Shmuel is not very new, because the Torah starts with that, right? When the God says, when Noah comes out of the ark, he says, I won't continue cursing earth because of what humans does. Like I ruined the whole everything because of the human actions, and I shouldn't ever punish them for the human actions. And you have the same also in the book of Yonah, that he says that the reason in the book of Yonah that we read on Yom Kippur, he says that when Yonah argued that they should be punished for what they did, and God tells him, yes, but there are so many children and animals.
Yeah,
Animals
very good.
that didn't do anything wrong. So this idea is actually a biblical idea that you have at least both in Noach and in Yonah, and continues here too.
Very nice.
So all the best.
The best. Night.
You can start saying Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you. Shabbat shalom.
Thank you very much.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.